Today we have to listen a meditation instruction regarding Venerable Potila. Venerable Potila was a senior monk who knew the Tipitaka very well. He was very learned. He was teaching Dharma to 500 monks because he knew the Tipitaka, all the teachings expounded by our Lord Buddha. He was also very conceited. Buddha knew his weakness and wanted him to mend his ways and put him on the right path. So whenever Potila came to pay obeisance to Buddha addressed him, used the Potila, Doja Potila. Buddha used the talk, the true and beneficial, whether they like or not. When Potila heard these remarks, he pondered over those words of the Buddha. I knew Tipitaka very well, but Buddha made these remarks. He was not angry. He had wise reflection. So he came to realize that Buddha had made those remarks because he had not made any serious effort to practice vipassana, and he had not achieved any of the mega or phala or even any level of mental absorption, jhana. So without telling anyone, Potila left for a forested area 20 yojana away from the Jetavana monastery. At that forested area, there were 30 monks were living. Potila went to that forested area. 30 arahants were living there. He went to the most senior arahant. He approached to him and he requested him, Bande, please teach me a subject of meditation. He said. The arahant thought that he might be too proud, so he did not give him any instruction but sent Potila to the second monk next to him in seniority. Also that second senior monk did the same thing. He sent him to the third monk next to him in seniority. The same thing happened with each monk until Potila came to the last monk, who was only 7 years old but who was also an Arahant. So Potila asked the 7 years old Arahant to give him a subject of meditation. That 7 years old Arahant said, Bande, I'm only 7 years old and I am inexperienced. Actually, it is I who must learn from you and not you from me, the Samanera said. But the monk Potila insisted that the young Arahant give him instruction for meditation. So the young novice asked Potila, Bande, can you do whatever I tell you to do? Potila said, yes. There was a pond near where the monks stayed. So the novice said, Pandit, you see the pond? Go into that pond. Samanera said. Without asking any question, Potila just entered into the pond until the edge of his robe got wet. Then the novice said, Pandit, stop there. And Potila stopped. After that, the novice was satisfied that the monk Potila had no pride in him and he would follow whatever instruction were given to him. So the 7 years old Samanera Arahant said, Bande, suppose there is a mount where an iguana or a lizard lives. Suppose there are 6 holes in the mount. In order to catch that lizard, you have to close the 5 holes and you have to sit at the 6th hole to catch it when it comes out. That is my instruction for meditation. What that means? That means you have to close the 5 senses and you have to act at the mind door, or you have to act with your mind. So Potila was learned monk. That much instruction was sufficient for the monk Potila to understand, to practice meditation. What the novice Arahant meant was not that you must close your eyes or you must close your ears in order to practice meditation. Even though it may be possible to close your eyes and ears, it is not possible to close your nose, tongue and body. So what meant? What Arahant meant was that whenever some object is presented to these 5 sense door, do not let there be the impulsion stage. That is in Pali, Javana. Do not let there be the impulsion stages. Just stop at the decision stage. That is determining consciousness, or in Pali, Ottapana. And then go over to the mind door and practice Vipassana meditation. Actually, it has to practice Vipassana meditation from the beginning. So whenever an object is presented to him, he must try to stop the process of thought at the moment of decision and not let it go over to impulsion moments. So this is Vipassana instruction. So that instruction is the same as Lord Buddha gave Malucha Buddha monk. So Buddha gave meditation instruction to Malucha Buddha monk. Itate Malucha Buddha Data Sutta Mutta Vinyate Sutta Mesu Date Data Matam Boisati Sute Sutta Matam Boisati Mute Mutta Matam Boisati Vinyate Vinyata Matam Bi Boisati. So that means herein of those things seen, heard, reached and cognized. In what is seen, there will be only the seen. In what is heard, there will be only the heard. And in what is reached, there will be only the reached. In what is cognized, there will be only the cognized. So this is a very short statement, very short instruction, but it is very important. It describes in a sense the practice of Vipassana meditation. Here the Buddha said things seen, heard, reached and cognized. When he asks question, he asks about 6 kinds of objects: visible objects, audible objects, and so on. When describing the practice of Vipassana, Buddha used only 4 words or 4 expressions: Data, Sutta, Mutta, Vinyata. That means seen, heard, reached, and cognized. So here the word reach is the translation of the Pali word Mutta. Things that are reached mean the smells, the taste, and the touched or tangible objects. So in Buddhist philosophy, there is a saying that the eye and the ear take these objects before the objects reach them, but the nose, the tongue, and the body takes the objects when they reach them or after they reach them. So that means they take them when these objects come into physical contact with these senses. So these 3, the smell, the taste, and the touch, are called those that are reached. In Pali, Mutta. Mutta is explained as that which is touched or that which is reached. Data Sutta Mutta Vinyate Sutta Mesu Date Data Matam Boisati Sute Sutta Matam Boisati Mute Mutta Matam Boisati Vinyate Vinyata Matam Bi Boisati. And what is seen, there will be only the seen. Date Data Matam Boisati. So that means when you see something, you must stop just at what is seen. That means we must not put any value on it, or we must not put any color to it or anything added to it. When we see the visible object, we take it to be beautiful or ugly, or we take it to be permanent, satisfactory or substantial, and so on. If we do not take the visible object as permanent or good or substantial, and we just stop at what is seen, then we are said to be observing that object correctly or rightly. In what is seen, that means with regard to what is seen, there will be only the seen. So you remember the instruction, when you see, you have to note seeing. And what is seen, there will be only the seen, only the object which is seen, and no other coloring or whatever on that object. And there is another explanation. According to that explanation, the seeing really means seeing consciousness. When we see something, there is consciousness in our minds. With that mind, we are said to see. That seeing consciousness is here called the seen. What is meant here is, with regard to what is seen, there must be only the seen. There will be the measure of seeing consciousness and nothing more, or there will be the impulsion stage, jhana, which is the same quality or the same nature as the seeing consciousness. Now it is not easy to understand. We need a little knowledge of Abhidhamma or Buddhist psychology in order to understand that process. Let us see what seeing is or what seeing involves. Under normal circumstances, we see things, we always see things. We are so used to seeing things that we think that seeing is a very simple thing, a simple process. However, if we watch seeing closely, if we apply real keen mindfulness to the process of seeing, we will see that it is not so simple. It is a complicated process. There are different moments in what we call seeing. So when we see the one thought process, there are 14 acts of process consciousness. Do you have a paper? So stream of Bhavanga, and number 1 is past Bhavanga, vibrational Bhavanga, number 2, number 3, arrest Bhavanga, number 4, 5 door adverting. So the mind turn to the visible objects, and number 5 is eye consciousness, number 6 receiving consciousness, number 7 investigating consciousness, number 8 determining consciousness, and 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 7 jhana, that is 7 impulsion moments, 16 and 17 registering consciousness, and then strings of Bhavanga. So strings of Bhavanga, when you see something, also this process come again, and when you hear the sound, so hearing process will come. So please follow my recitation to be familiar. Streams of Bhavanga.
Stream of Bhavanga.
Past Bhavanga.
Past Bhavanga.
Vibrational Bhavanga.
Vibrational Bhavanga.
Arrest Bhavanga.
Arrest Bhavanga.
5 door adverting.
5 door adverting.
So number 4 in Pali we call a avijjana citta. Number 5 is eye consciousness.
Eye consciousness.
Number 5 is eye Chakku Vijnana. Number 6, receiving consciousness.
Receiving consciousness.
Investigating consciousness.
Investigating consciousness.
Determining consciousness.
Determining consciousness.
Impulsion 7 moments.
Impulsion 7 moments.
Registration 2 moments.
Registration 2 moments.
Strings of Bhavanga.
Stream of Bhavanga.
So when we see something, that is the process of seeing. 5 door adverting, that is avijjana in Pali. Eye consciousness is Chakku Vijnana. Receiving consciousness, Sampatijjana. Investigation consciousness is Santirana. Determining is Votapana. And impulsion is Javana in Pali. Registration is Dhataramana. Strings of Bhavanga. Life continuum. So our life is continuing in this way. According to Buddhist psychology, there is a kind of mental state or mental activity which is called Bhavanga. Let us call it inactive consciousness. This inactive consciousness is like a flow of water. It goes on and on and on all during our lives. When a visible object comes into the avenue of the eye, or as we say, when a visible object strikes at the eye sensitivity, that flow of inactive consciousness is disturbed. When it is disturbed, it vibrates or it is shaken. So after 3 moments, it ceases. You see 1, 2, 3 is past Bhavanga, vibrational Bhavanga, and arrest Bhavanga. So 3 times is shaking. So after 3 moments, Bhavanga ceases. And in its place, there arises another kind of consciousness, an active consciousness. So at that moment, the mind turns towards the present object. The mind turns towards the active series of consciousness. That moment is just called turning moment or adverting consciousness. So when you see something, your mind turns to the visible object. So this is adverting consciousness or turning moment. After the turning moment or five-door adverting consciousness, there comes seeing consciousness. After the mind has turned to the visible object, the mind see it. That is called seeing moment or seeing consciousness. That seeing consciousness is very weak consciousness. It is very superficial seeing, just seeing the visible object and nothing more. After the seeing moment disappears, there is another moment, the receiving moment or receiving consciousness. That means the mind receives the object presented to it after it has been seen. After the receiving moment comes the moment of investigation. In this moment, the object is investigated as to whether it is a desirable object or an undesirable object, as to whether it is an agreeable object or a disagreeable object or a neutral object. After the investigation comes the determining moment. At this moment, the object is determined as agreeable, disagreeable, or neutral. Once the object is determined, there follow moments of the real experiencing the object. These moments are said to run for 7 times. In Pali, it is called javana, 7 times. Under normal condition, these moments are the most active. They are the productive moments. These moments can be accompanied by either attachment, lust or craving, or they can be accompanied by anger, hatred, aversion, worry, and also delusion. These follow the moment of decision. So in the instruction, we again remember, whenever some object is presented to these 5 senses, do not let there be the impulsion stages. Just stop at the decision stage. That is, stop at the Motabana and then go over to the Javana. So we have to explain more details in this thought process. We will continue tomorrow, and we have to recite some meditation instruction from Maluja Buddha Sutta. So in Maluja Buddha Sutta, Buddha mentioned when there is no seeing, defilements by themselves will cease. When there is no hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, knowing, etc., defilements by themselves will cease. So when there is seeing, dormant defilements arise and increase. What we have to do, by noting every seeing, defilements are cut down. So this method of practice in the riddle is found. Do not be puzzled, do not be confused. Note immediately seeing, seeing. Note immediately hearing, hearing. Note immediately smelling, tasting, touching, knowing, etc. This is the instruction expounded by the Buddha to Maluja Buddha monk. It is the same instruction to Venerable Potila. So please follow my recitation. When there is no seeing, defilements by themselves will cease. When there is no seeing, defilements by themselves will cease. When there is seeing, dormant defilements arise and increase. When there is seeing, dormant defilements arise and increase. By noting every seeing, defilements are cut down. By noting every seeing, defilements are cut down. This method of practice in the riddle is found. This method of practice
His method of practice
in the riddle is found.
in the riddle is found.
So we'll continue the thought process tomorrow by practicing Satipatthana Vipassana meditation, by noting, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching continuously and meticulously. May you all practitioners cut down the mental defilements. May you all practitioners realize the real peace in the very near future.
Sadhu, sadhu.